And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo. Got another great show in store for you. My guest is Chris Flash. Hasn't been here for a couple of years. Last year, right? You were here last year. 1 year ago. 1 year ago. About this time last year. Yeah.
For the August show.
The last time we did the Shadow and the show that went with it, right?
Right.
Right. Well, you're here because it's the new issue of the Shadow that's out.
Yes, we're promoting the
And
next.
put it up here. And it's a great cover. I love the. Who did this cover?
Danny Hellman, this amazing underground artist. He's
Yeah.
done a lot of work for a lot of different publications, including
Yeah.
Screw Magazine, but all different publications and bands, and he's an amazing artist. And we told him basically what our theme was on this issue, because we've got two great articles, one about Trump and one about Hillary. And we see the commonality between these two candidates as being, offered by the moneyed elite and being paid off by the same people. And the fact that Trump is not really running against Hillary, they're just really good friends. He's the spoiler, and that the fix appears to be in for Hillary, but they're being funded by the same people, big money nevertheless. So they don't really represent anybody. And Danny took this verbal concept and he executed this amazing piece.
Well, these are sort of as a god, right? They're like a two-headed god.
Apparently, in biblical terms, there's something called Mammon, M-A-M-O-N.
Mammon.
And that's this sacrificial altar built for the devil, for devil worship. And he incorporated. I didn't even know about this. He just created this. It came out of his fertile mind.
And we have
they are
these
the perfect
guys in
idols
suits bringing bags of loot to Exxon, Pfizer, Goldman Sachs, Aetna Insurance. We know that Hillary took money from Goldman Sachs to give speeches that she refuses to give us the content of those speeches. She got like some obscene amount of money. I thought I was watching President Obama did that funny routine in front of the press club where he was saying that maybe if he's funny enough, he could do the same comedy show in front of Goldman Sachs in return for some Tubmans. Being that they want to put
Very good.
right. They want to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill to replace the racist slave-owning Indian killer Andrew Jackson.
It's pretty bad. The fix really is in for Hillary, unfortunately. And believe me, I would love to see Sanders
You don't think
in.
Bernie will do it?
I think Bernie would be.
He's going to win tonight.
I think
in
he'll
West
win
Virginia.
everywhere but New York.
He might win California.
But unfortunately, people like Hillary have like cities like New York City and New York State fixed. So these are two articles we've got. One pertains to Donald Trump. Whoops. Okay, the camera's weird. This pertains to Donald Trump.
You can do it. I'll hold it this side. You
Thank
hold
you.
that side.
This one pertains to Donald Trump and his history in the Lower East Side.
Hold it back and pull it down.
Most
and
people
in front
outside
of
New York don't really know Trump's history. There's another Danny Hellman piece, by the way, amazing. This comes from his Facebook page. He let us have it. But this gives you the history of Trump, his son-in-law Jared Kushner, who's one of the gentrifiers on the Lower East Side.
What's it
Westminster.
say? Born with a silver spoon, then handed a golden one by New York City politicians.
That's Trump's history in New York that most people outside of New York don't know about.
Move your hand on your left hand.
Sorry, okay.
No, your right hand, I guess. Whichever hand. Let's pull it this way. Well, here, no, pull it to you.
The camera's a little weird here, folks. Sorry.
Everything, pull it towards you.
Okay, it's a mirror effect.
There it goes. Yes, the mirror effect. You'll get used to it.
Here's Hillary
Why
Clinton sucking on Kissinger's finger. Now, where his finger has been, we don't know.
That's a real picture, right?
Absolutely not photoshopped.
That's not a Photoshop picture.
Now, apparently, she is buddy, cozy
Where
with
did you
the
get
Bushes.
that picture? I got
this
it.
came
That's
online.
right.
It was liberated from an online from a Google search. And it's not photoshopped. It's a real shot. She's at a real event. She's at other shots where she's hugging him, kissing him. She's with George Bush too. She's with Kissinger. All the right-wing war criminals she's very cozy with. She's not really running as a Democrat. In fact, when Bernie Sanders in the 1960s was fighting on the streets in furtherance of civil rights for blacks, she was a member of the Young Republicans in the 60s.
She was working for Goldwater.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very true.
And I can tell you that I'm younger than her, but I grew up in that period as well, and I never worked for Goldwater.
Well, I want to say that the author of the piece about Hillary Clinton being more dangerous than Donald Trump, which is the title of the piece, is written by a really great investigative journalist named John Pilger. If you look up John Pilger, Pilger, on YouTube, you'll see amazing documentaries this guy has done. He and Greg Palast are like one of the few. I think maybe Peter Lance, very few people, Peter Arnett, who are real, true, genuine investigative journalists who actually go out and get their stories. They don't regurgitate press releases from the government or Reuters or Associated Press. They actually go out and get the news themselves.
Now, this newspaper is not currently available on the internet.
No, we had.
And to me, that's a fascinating issue because we're talking about the content, and I want to continue talking the time we have about the content of the newspapers is great, and I was a big contributor to it, so I love
You're
that.
a shadow person,
right
from the beginning.
Right, I was in the first issue, right?
You were.
I was on the cover of the first issue.
I don't know about the cover. You did a piece on the Guardian Angels.
Right, angels
strong-arming
in dirty
people and beating the
places.
crap out of them. Gangsters
Yeah.
beating up homeless people, like twisting their arms and
angels in dirty
thugs.
places or
No,
something like that.
that. Angel with dirty faces, I think.
Angels with dirty faces.
It was a good
right.
piece. It still is a good piece.
Well, that was it. Well, so that was the first. When was the first issue of The Shadow?
God, what was the first issue?
1990.
When? March of '89. So this is like
March of
27 years
89.
we've been doing this. Insanity.
27 years, and this is which issue? What number?
This is number 58. We took a
58.
5-year break from 2008 to 2013. Real life gets in the way of some projects, and so we took a 5-year hiatus. But from 2013 to the present, we've been publishing, and we're going to stick to it and come out on a regular basis.
Right, where is it available?
Right now, around different stores around the country, and particularly to this New York audience on the Lower East Side at stores like Blue Stocking Books on Allen Street, Gem Spa Newsstand on 2nd Avenue in St. Mark's, East Village Books, this little bookstore on St. Mark's between 1st and Avenue A, a store called Ink, I-N-K, on Avenue A between 4th and 5th Streets. Different stores around the neighborhood, you can ask for us. But we are getting our website together. So it's under construction. It's going to be shadowpress.net when we get it together.
But I like the idea that you guys are old school and keeping it, because when I read this paper, I get ink on my fingers. I haven't gotten ink on my fingers in years.
Well, there's a thing
I
about
love
how
that.
your brain processes information,
Right.
either like from reading a book or reading a periodical. Your brain processes and retains information in a different manner than it does when it looks at a screen, at light particles.
Right.
And also, your brain...
And more and more, I'm looking at smaller and smaller screens. I'm reading on my phone. I'm reading on little iPads. I'm reading on tiny little screens, and I start getting neck creaks and all this
I
stuff.
think you get more out of this, plus there's something special about the printed word. You retain this longer, and it's more likely passed on to somebody, and people appreciate it more. They can hold it in their hands. I mean, not everyone has access to a computer
And also,
or an iPod
as
or
we've been
a
showing,
smartphone.
these are reads. I mean, your articles.
Not
the
to blow
articles
our
that
own horn, but
they're
yes.
reads. I mean, they're really like old-fashioned long reads that have lots of information that are fun to read. I mean, you could get into this and like take it apart and read it.
We can show a
and
few
think what it was
pieces.
like in the days when people used to really read
Well,
instead of skimming for information.
That plus, there is a need for an alternative underground newspaper, at least in every major city, if not in every single city around the country. The problem is the mainstream media has a lock on what they consider to be news. It all comes off a main wire, either Associated Press or Reuters or some feed, and they regurgitate it. They may put a local spin on it, but it's usually the same story with usually the same headline. You can read the Compost or the Daily Snooze or the New York Slimes, and it's basically the same stories with slightly different spins, but you're going to get the mainstream media or corporate media's decision on what they're going to tell you is today's news, whereas the underground alternative press doesn't have to, is not bound by the same constrictions, and we can put out really informative pieces. Case in point,
Yes.
Paul, you did this amazing piece about Love Canal. Now, Love Canal, for those who don't remember, is this area by the Niagara Falls where there's a housing project, and people were experiencing a large number of birth defects in their children, and adults were getting sick, a large cancer rate. And it was finally revealed, and this is in the 70s, that there was a huge nuclear waste dump near Niagara Falls in an area called Love Canal. So ultimately the government closed it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the government closed it down, and they did what was called a super cleanup site. Superfund cleanup site. And after X amount of time, they deemed it safe to start building new housing projects there. And people are now living there, a new generation of people, unsuspecting, who don't know what's
We're starting to have the
right
same
below the
physical
surface.
problems too.
And they're and the same shit's going to happen. Oh, excuse me.
That's right.
So this reveals that
That's what it is.
not only
You're very
has this
accurate.
not gone away, but this is like the history behind Love Canal. And there are various, thanks to Paul revealing this, there are various active, radioactive nuclear sites throughout the 5 boroughs, stemming from the Manhattan Project, which was not only set in New Mexico, it started in Manhattan, hence the name. And correct me if I'm wrong. And there are various sites throughout Manhattan where nuclear waste was disposed of and still radioactive. And people in Manhattan,
Queens, New Jersey.
Staten Island,
Yeah, Staten Island, lots of places.
and
Staten
Manhattan.
Island.
And we've
Yep.
got this great piece written by our co-editor about a building at number 50 Hudson Street. I don't know how many
Little do
people...
we know, as soon as we were doing this research, we found out our co-editor was actually an analytical chemist working for a company,
Lucius Pitkin.
Lucius Pitkin, which was doing assays of uranium ore from the horrible Kerr-McGee Corporation, which is implicated in the murder of Karen Silkwood.
Right, and that's a big story.
And in the movie
that's never been fully
Silkwood,
told.
right, totally implicated, and it turns out that they were dumping the radioactive waste from the assay, thousands of these assays, into the New York City sewer system until somebody actually followed the radiation to the place. The people from the sewer department actually followed the radiation to the place and fined them a huge amount of money.
In 50 Hudson Street, it's in the basement, it's on the roof, it's inside this restaurant that's like now serving people food and drinks on the ground floor of 50 Hudson Street. It's something you should order. If anyone lives on the Lower West Side or the Soho area, Tribeca, you might want to think twice.
Extra hot.
So that's another story. That's linked to your piece.
A new thing to nuking something.
So there's a lot of like nuclear-related
angle.
pieces in this issue of the shadow.
Yeah, we got a lot. I mean, right, there was right, and what's interesting is, I'm still doing the research because these stories are all linked in a way we still are only vaguely. This is only these stories that we did.
Literal
you should
tip
read.
of the iceberg.
It's just the tip of several tips of the iceberg sticking above the water, and we want to know, for example, why the NYPD lied about finding radioactive waste in Staten Island. Why, when they're supposed to be protecting us from terrorists, they then tell us there was some industrial location where there was no industrial location. To describe what we found out later was a bunch of witnesses to Army trucks dumping waste into the water.
That's the real big story, that it's a secret military disposal site for radioactive waste. They made it look like a corporation dumped all this crap in Love Canal and in Staten Island, but it's a military project stemming from the Manhattan Project to make unnecessary nuclear bombs after World War II.
And we're talking about the Great Kills. The Great Kills Park, which is anybody who lives out in Staten Island knows that park has been closed. 500-acre park, about 2/3 or more of it have been closed and fenced off because it turned out that the soil that was used in the landfill when it was filled in the 1940s. In the 1940s, during the height of the Manhattan Project, was totally polluted with radium and uranium and all these other ores, which are, I have experts we talk to who say it is from the Manhattan Project.
And this stuff is forever. Okay, so your two pieces
For
are
a
really
long time,
amazing.
1,600 years.
Okay, that's a relief. I thought it was forever.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, Paul did a really great piece about Love Canal and also secret sites throughout the 5 boroughs. So this is a very informative issue, thanks to Paul and thanks to Mr. Kronstadt.
Great story. His story was amazing. And the fact that he was working at crotch level at a table that actually dated from the Manhattan Project.
The fact that he has no cancer is amazing. He's a very healthy guy, and he's extremely lucky. How many people have dropped dead?
Many.
And how many are going to drop dead from this
Next issue,
stuff?
I'll do a story about all the people who got cancer working for these people. And there's a whole, I started doing the research on that.
And there's no legal recourse for their families,
Young men
nothing.
dying in their 30s and stuff.
They just die. They're like collateral damage.
No, they got leukemia mostly. That, of course,
and
goes right to the bone.
You can't link it 30 years later to the
radium
cause, right?
And
it's too late.
they won't. I mean, everybody knows.
Yeah, of course, but you can't prove it in court and
It's hard.
How do you compensate for a life?
In wartime, and even in the 1950s, was considered the Cold War was considered still wartime for a lot of people. A lot of people will not complain about the crimes that were committed against them by the government during wartime because they're figured, there's our boys are on the beach in Guadalcanal and all these places.
Great programming, huh?
Yeah, right. So we shouldn't say anything, and that era was like that, I'm always a big fan of nobody snitching. At the same time, you overdo it.
There's a larger issue. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
you don't protect the bad government from like
exactly
a snitch.
As we learned in the Nixon when James Dean, John Dean, testified and everybody called him a snitch, but it was a good thing that he did that, in that situation.
Oh, speaking of Nixon aides, we've got a really great piece pertaining to John Ehrlichman, a former Nixon aide by the name of John Ehrlichman. Older folks will remember who he was.
Oh, I remember.
But in a recent issue of Harper's Magazine, which is a really good magazine, you should get a hold of it. I'm not talking about Harper's Bazaar. I'm talking about Harper's, not the fashion magazine, but the investigative journalist magazine. And they're revealing a quote by John Ehrlichman, this ugly mutt. Looks very Nixonian, doesn't he, in that pose? Very much like
great.
We've got other
like
shots
Mussolini.
of him. We've got other shots of him where he seems to be mimicking his mentor, Richard Nixon.
Well, to me, he's a cross between Nixon and Mussolini.
Well, I could read this little quote. There's a quote that he gave this reporter, and I don't know why the reporter waited 20 years to reveal it. This guy's a real moron for this, because this is a really explosive quote. It pertains to the truth behind the drug war. And this is John Ehrlichman speaking with the Harper's reporter back in 1994. Quote, can I read this real quick?
Yeah, read it, go ahead.
You want to know what this was really all about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to either be against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. And that's the basis of the drug war.
Mm-hmm. And the SWAT teams that bust into people's homes.
DEA that Nixon created.
All over America. You know, that DEA, that SWAT teams.
Didn't exist before Nixon, the DEA.
And SWAT teams break down the doors several times, like about, I don't know, numerous times a day, all over America, every day.
And nobody has done anything wrong. No one's broken the law.
Well,
And they've shot people who
yeah.
react to the break-in.
Oh yeah. Oh, they go into the wrong house and shoot down the person. And one they
on the basis of a confidential informant who's trying to stay out of jail by giving any information to stay out of jail, no matter how incorrect or true it is.
Somebody threw a grenade into a baby's bassinet and injured this baby who will have surgeries for the rest of his life.
What causes more harm, the person smoking marijuana or doing drugs, or the SWAT teams that kill innocent people and or destroy families for people because someone has marijuana growing on his property? They take their home, they displace the family, they remove the breadwinner of the family, they destroy social networks, they put people in jail needlessly for decades.
And
what's more harmful?
Clinton, and I do not understand why Hillary Clinton gets in these conservative states, and I hate to put New York in that class, in the South and in New York, she gets the black vote when she once said that the people they were arresting in the inner city ghettos were, what was her exact words? She called them serial killers or something like that. She had some term for that. It'll come to me in a second.
She's a young Republican.
Yeah.
An interesting note, though, the guy who was helping us design the shadow for this issue, really great graphic designer. Yeah. I'm not going to name him because I don't think he wants to be named, but he revealed that he had a friend in the CIA, or still has a friend in the CIA, and this is the CIA's brand of heroin that they were producing in the 70s and still produce currently. This is their seal of their brand of heroin. And you
that's
get
what
the shadow.
CIA was bringing into
This is
the
their
country.
particular special brand. It's called Double UO Globe, their own heroin brand. And it's funny how, so we juxtapose that with the drug war piece.
Serial predators.
Oh.
That was Hillary Clinton's
Of course they are.
Right? Serial predators.
Of course they are.
Right?
Anybody that doesn't...
And here's the government bringing it into the country, right?
Also, a great piece about Stanley Cohen, the activist attorney.
Yes.
Who just got released from jail after serving 18 months. For nothing, for doing nothing.
Well, revenge.
If you ran a business, being a great lawyer. If you ran a business, of course that's the reason. But if you ran a business as a sole practitioner and you failed to file a form, what's the usual penalty or remedy by the government? They would say,
make you do it.
well,
pay it.
File the correct form, pay a fine, and you're okay. In the case of Stanley Cohen, no, it had to go a little further than that. They had to show Stanley that, look, we screwed Lynn Stewart, your former partner, for being a politically activist lawyer, and now we're going to do the same to you. And that's basically what they did to him. But one thing about Stanley, and he's got this great blog called Caged but Undaunted.
Yes.
And we call this interview Uncaged and Undaunted. He will not kiss their ass. He's out of jail. He's just as tough as ever. He's still the same old Stanley, and thank goodness.
He hasn't changed a bit. I ran into him on the subway. It was so great.
Not at all.
We ran on the train. I said, Stanley Cohen is on the subway.
Are we allowed to say curses on this thing within reason?
Yes.
Okay. Here's a good Stanley story. I've got a couple of great Stanley stories. Here's one Stanley story. This happened around late 80s, early 90s. We're having a demonstration on 4th Street when we had not Dinkinsville, it was 8th Street. We had this homeless encampment set up across the street from this abandoned school building, which we were calling the ABC Community Center. Only when the community, with Mike Schenker as the leader, or as the instigator, decided to occupy the building and make a community center out of this abandoned school building being used by junkies, where people were shooting up and dying or starting little fires. Only when the community decided to use this abandoned building did the city suddenly say, oh, wait, we have plans for that building. Then the cops kept coming in and harassing us. So during one of the demonstrations where we're having standoffs with the cops at this particular building, someone said, fuck you, pig, to one of the cops. They got arrested. Now, they arrested 10, 20 people that day. So Stanley's in court representing all these different people, one at a time. Stanley gets to the person who said, fuck you, pig. Stanley comes to the judge and says, Your Honor, fuck you, pig is protected free speech. Everyone is spinning around. They can't believe a lawyer is saying, fuck you, pig. He doesn't say it once. He says it twice, 3 times, 4 times, louder each time. People are popping out of seats. The DA couldn't believe it. The court officers couldn't believe it. What does the judge do? Dismissed. It was protected free speech. You can say, fuck you, pig, and not be arrested. he got the guy dismissed. That was one of many Stanley stories. And you need an arrogant political activist attorney. You need the Stanley Cohens, the Norman Siegels, the Ronald Kubys, the Bill Kunslers, the Lynn Stewarts, the Jackie Bukowskis. You need the activist lawyers. Moira Cohen, she's amazing. She wrote a little piece for us here, actually, about not letting the cops in your door.
Instructions on what to do.
And what little thing
if you get a knock on the door, what you do, right?
Yeah, she's amazing, and she's a friend of Stanley's.
What to say.
No relation, but she's a friend of Stanley's.
Right, step by step.
You need these attorneys, movement attorneys and activist attorneys, to make political activism possible. Otherwise, it's totally unable to be done.
So as usual, the Shadows always had a lot of stuff from attorneys, from progressive and
From the beginning,
attorneys.
we were really blessed to have the best attorneys who are committed
We had
to
Down
social
by Law was
activism.
a column. Do you call it Down by Law anymore, the column?
Yes, we do. And we've had different attorneys. Actually, what's really funny? I got a traffic ticket in Maryland one day. And I got this public defender referred to me by Ron Kuby. And the guy said, I wrote for the Shadow once. I'm like, what? Turned out he was an intern for Kuby and Kunstler, and he had written a piece for Down by Law. I totally forgot. That's what a small world it is. You remember the Shadow?
Yes, he knew
really
you
funny.
from a ticket in Maryland.
But yes, we've always had really great attorneys write good pieces for the Down by Law column we have in every issue.
Oh, great.
So it's not just somebody ranting and raving about the law, it's actual attorneys giving good advice or their commentary on current social issues.
Right. We always had good attorneys with the whole, let's tell people why the Shadow began. Well, first of all, remind people where they can get the Shadow, because this is the type of thing where you got to get your fingers dirty.
A couple of ways. One is by mail, and unfortunately it costs more for the postage than the dollar cover charge for the Shadow. It costs $1.50 to mail it. So for $2.50 or for $25 for 10-issue subscription, we can mail you the Shadow in a plain brown envelope so no one knows you're getting it or knows what's inside. P.O. Box 20298, 20298, New York, New York, zip 1009, 20298, New York, New York, 1009. You can also get it in the neighborhood of the Lower East Side. There's various bookstores around the country, but I can't get into that right now. There's too many to list. But locally and in Brooklyn, you can get Spoonbill Books in Brooklyn, Thug Nation Books in Brooklyn, Blue Stockings on Allen Street, Gem Spa on St. Mark's and 2nd Avenue. We lost St. Mark's Books, unfortunately. That was a disaster. Ink on Avenue A, East Village Books on St. Mark's between A and 1st. The Source Xerox Store on East 10th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue. Who else? Continuum Bicycle Shop on East 11th Street between A and B.
And of course, this on the 15th, don't you have an event coming up?
Actually, May 29th. We got rained out on May 1st, and we're going to get May 29th.
So what's happening on May 29th?
May 29th, we've got a great bunch of bands, including the Undead.
Where is that going to be?
Tompkins Square Park, 7th and A. We got a great little roster of different shows, different bands. This gives you the list of all the shows happening this year in Tompkins Square Park. One show not listed is June 4th, which we got as a rain day because we lost May 1st to rain. But the very next show is going to be May 29 in Tompkins Square Park. I trust Paul will be one of the many political speakers we'll have there.
And you'll be able to get a copy of the Shadow there.
Absolutely. We'll have a Shadow table with old and new Shadows.
Oh, let's talk about the obits, by the way. I saw the picture of Adam Purple. You had some obits on
Oh, what a shame. This particular issue.
We lost been losing folks.
We lost 4 really important people this time around, and between the last Shadow and this Shadow. Adam Purple, a really good friend. I would call him an urban survivalist gardener, community gardener on the Lower East Side. He took these huge vacant lots and he turned it in what was tonight.
I was there, man. I saw that lot. I was inside that lot. I love that lot.
It was called the Garden of Eden. It had fruit trees. It had concentric circles resembling a yin-yang pattern. Just beautiful. His labor of love and his work of art. There were vacant lots all over the area at the time. The whole area resembled London after the Blitz, after World War II. And the city decided they had to build some low-income housing on Adams' site, not the one across the street where there were vacant city-owned lots, not to the left or right where they had other city-owned lots. It had to be right on Adams' parcel. And when Adam refused to move the garden, how do you move a garden, by the way, that you spent 20 years building? They said he was unreasonable. He was immovable. We just have to take it. And they destroyed the garden, and they built this phony cinder block, brick face, low-income housing, which they can tear down with a sledgehammer at any time. We lost Adam. He was almost 85 years old, a really good friend of ours. We also lost Judith Molina, one of the founders of the Living Theater, a legiondary woman.
She was on the show.
Was she really? Wow.
Yes, she
You're
was
so
a guest
lucky
on
you
this
got
show
her.
with
Wow.
Johnny Musi and myself, yeah.
She is amazing. I have a little anecdote about her. Back in 2007, the Living Theater had relocated to a basement space on a place on Clinton Street. And at this point, she's in her 80s. And she's doing a little play, a little small skit, nothing sexy, but the premise of the play was she's an old woman living in a tenement. And there's a young yuppie woman living in the same building. The yuppie woman's paying a lot of rent. The old woman's paying no rent because she's been there forever. The young woman is repulsed by the old woman because the old woman makes her mindful of her own mortality. So she avoids the old woman as much as possible. At some point during the play, the young woman breaks down and realizes, I really have to care for this old woman. So she's going to help the old woman take a bath. Judith Malina takes all her clothes off. I mean, she's completely fucking naked. She's in her 80s. And I thought, wow, who would have the nerve to do that except Judith Malina? Because the spirit of the Living Theater was not just to be outrageous and bold and go where no one else has gone before, but to get the audience involved. That was their specialty. In this particular play, they didn't get the audience involved, but she did this, and I was floored, and I congratulated her after. This is her at a performance in Paris in the 1970s. This camera requires a little getting used to. But she and her husband, Garrick Beck was his name? Garrick Beck?
No, that was her
that's her son, Garrick. Julian Beck.
Right.
He was in that movie Poltergeist, one of many people who died mysteriously after Poltergeist was made. That was, the little girl that
yes.
But anyway, but they together were like a real amazing team. Another person we lost was Dan Schechter, aka the News Dissector, and he was with Global Vision. His partner Rory O'Connor at Global Vision, these guys did amazing investigative reports, especially South Africa. It's something called South Africa Now. All kinds of documentaries, and Rory wrote a very loving, gigantic piece. And at first the link was so large that we had to consider editing, but it was so good we couldn't edit it. It was just too good. So you'll really enjoy this. Dan Schechter was a friend of ours. He actually appeared at the Tompkins Square show. He did documentaries. One of his best ones was Weapons of Mass Deception, how the mainstream media was complicit. Did we run out of time?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. How the mass media was complicit in the build-up to the invasion of Iraq after 9/11, totally ignoring all the facts. One of his favorite models was the more you watch, referring to television, the less you know. Which is a great one.
We got a minute, less than 2 minutes. That's what the notice was.
One real quick addition, real quick.
Go ahead.
Bill Schaap, also from Covert Action News Bulletin, another good friend of the Shadows. He revealed the story, the truth behind the Pan Am Lockerbie bombing, which wasn't Libya, but rather CIA agents blowing each other up on a drug courier flight. So Bill Schaap from Covert Action News Bulletin, Covert Action Information Bulletin, if you want to like Google and look up their stuff. Very informative stuff.
All right, so all this is and more is
really,
in the
really
Shadow.
quick too. One last plug.
One last plug. Right.
One of our Shadow people has put out a new zine called Time Warp, Take the City Back. It's really amazing little zine, and it kind of echoes everything that's been in the Shadow. There we go.
And where can you get this?
This is going to be available at Blue Stockings Books and East Village Books. Blue Stockings on Allen Street and East Village Books on St. Mark's. And also,
good place to get your reading
May
material.
29th in Tompkins Square Park, when we have our first punk show. The Undead's going to play. That's going to be a really amazing show.
All right, great. All right, we got
Sorry,
still
trying
a
to
little
squeeze
bit more
everything
time.
in.
And here's the last issue. We were here talking about this. Did you want to show folks that? I mean,
this is the previous issue. That's it? No?
No.
Okay, 40 seconds. The previous issue of The Shadow is a No Police State. And this issue will also be available at the next show in Tompkins Square Park. This really delves into the story behind Eric Garner, the man being choked by 4 or 5 cops.
That's
for
amazing.
The horrible
photograph.
crime of allegedly selling cigarettes. No cigarettes found on his person. No witnesses seeing him selling the cigarettes, but he gets choked to death nevertheless. How ridiculous! How absurd! How
This is a great issue, and so you can also get this issue if you come to the event on May 29th.
Tompkins Square Park, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Right, or you could send him a letter and
P.O.
and
Box
get it sent to you.
20298, New York 1009, or the stores that I mentioned.
All right.
And if you see a store that doesn't have the Shadow, please ask for it, and maybe they'll carry us.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Thank you,
Good
Paul.
to have you on. All right, and we'll see you next week.
Until next issue.
Bye-bye.